celebrate our Constitution, or you look at the laws that have been passed into law.
And in those hearings, Republicans described weaponization as, quote, corruption, quote, government abuse.
We're going to make sure you understand what democracy looks like. And this ain't...
In just a few minutes, I'll break down the exact words she used, the impeccable timing, and the surgical precision with which she exposed Trump's vulnerabilities. This is a masterclass in how to dismantle a former president. Before we continue, even Trump's most devoted supporters would agree. If you're enjoying this content, I'd like to ask a small favor. Please take a moment to subscribe to the channel and give this video a like. Over 98% of viewers watch without signing up, and while it costs you nothing, it makes a huge difference to us. Have you hit the subscribe button? Fantastic. Thank you so much. Now let's get back to the video. You won't believe what Jasmine Crockett just did to Trump. She delivered the political equivalent of a knockout punch. While most politicians throw weak jabs that barely land, this was no ordinary critique on live television. It was a masterclass in how to completely dismantle a former president.
Democrats in the House, and then you had the vast majority of senators vote for it or vote against it as well. And so the idea that Chuck Schumer is the only one that's got a brain in the room and the only one that can think through all of the pros and cons is absolutely ridiculous. And Jake, you and I both know that this administration could care less about whether or not they violate the law. We know that we've had to rely heavily upon the courts. And I want to say, as you're talking about the polling on my party, I want to say that it is the Democratic attorney generals and some governors that are standing up against this administration and bringing those lawsuits and winning every single time. They are losing in court. Could we do a better job of making sure that the American people know that we are winning in the courts? We probably could. But at the end of the day, it's still Democrats that are winning for the American people.
Some progressive groups are calling for new leadership in the Senate for Democrats. Even House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries, your leader, he was asked if he supports Schumer as leader of the Senate Democrats, and he said, next question. Do you think Senate Democrats should replace Chuck Schumer?
I think Senate Democrats have to sit down and take a look and decide whether or not Chuck Schumer is the one to lead in this moment.
You're close with Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez of New York. Some of your fellow House Democrats say, and not just progressives, by the way, we've heard that moderates have said this too, that they're ready to support her to challenge Chuck Schumer in a Democratic primary. Would you get behind that?
That's 4 years from now. If you were asking me at least in 2 years, then I would have an absolute answer. But I can tell you that there are a lot of people that are watching his leadership in this moment. This is the moment. We don't even know what elections will look like in 4 years, if we will have elections. And so I definitely think that younger, fresher leadership may be something that many of us, not just depending on what part of the spectrum you're on, but many Americans may be looking for, especially in the state of New York.
Why was Crockett's takedown so successful? In politics, timing is everything. Trump was already on the defensive about his record when she struck. Think of it like a boxer waiting for the perfect moment to catch their opponent off guard. That's exactly what Crockett did. She landed a haymaker that Trump never saw coming, even as he braced for the usual soft jabs. While most Democrats tiptoe around Trump, Crockett walked right up to him and called him exactly what she believes he is, a white supremacist and a thug. Trump, who always has a rebuttal ready, looked like a deer in headlights when confronted so directly, without the usual political double talk or evasion. You've probably seen Trump's go-to strategy. The moment someone criticizes him, it's fake news, this and witch hunt that. But his usual deflection tactics fell flat against Crockett's direct and unexpected approach. She seemed to know exactly which buttons to push to disrupt his typical reactions. What you might not know is that Crockett's background as a trial lawyer made her uniquely equipped for this confrontation. Trial lawyers are experts at cornering someone trying to lie their way out of trouble. They ask pointed questions, refuse to accept evasive answers, and are skilled at making someone's guilt obvious through their own responses. Trump wasn't just up against a politician. He was up against a professional trained to make liars squirm.
Purging of thousands of hardworking, dedicated federal servants
who swore an oath to protect the Constitution and the rule of law. They use it as a war cry, a battle call, to justify dismantling federal agencies.
Crockett didn't just criticize Trump with vague accusations. She hit him with specific examples of his lies about immigration, national security, and Ukraine. Unlike the usual political critiques that rely on broad terms like bad policies or divisive rhetoric, she didn't just call him dishonest. She pointed to concrete instances that viewers could easily recall and verify for themselves. Her delivery was masterful. Despite the sharpness of her remarks, she didn't raise her voice or let emotion take over. Instead, she spoke in a calm, matter-of-fact tone, presenting her accusations as if they were undeniable truths everyone already knew. This approach made any denial from Trump seem desperate, especially when delivered with such poised confidence. It was like someone politely pointing out that your fly is down. Getting angry about it only makes you look worse. In a way, Crockett set the perfect trap. The more Trump tried to defend himself, the guiltier he appeared. If he ignored the accusation, he seemed to be dodging the issue. If he engaged, he risked reinforcing the label she had placed on him. You could almost see Trump realizing in real time that there was no good way to respond. Her strategy highlights a crucial lesson. Confronting Trump with anger and insults isn't the most effective approach. Instead, it's about making clear, fact-based accusations without emotional charge. By staying composed while delivering cutting content, Crockett denied Trump the chaotic energy he thrives on. This wasn't a random attack that happened to land. It was a calculated dismantling of Trump's entire defensive playbook. Crockett essentially created a blueprint for other Democrats on how to effectively challenge Trump. Step 1. Be specific. Step 2. Be direct. Step 3. Stay composed. Step 4. Watch him unravel. But what happens when a targeted attack becomes a nuclear strike? When Crockett called Trump a white supremacist, she didn't just crack his defensive shell, she shattered it by backing her claim with hard-hitting statistics, like pointing out that 80% of violent crimes originate from the very groups Trump refuses to denounce. This wasn't just a takedown, it was a masterclass in political strategy.
They use it as a war cry, a battle call, to justify dismantling federal agencies and this phrase, the weaponization of government, is something that has been overly used and repeated by my Republican colleagues.
Did you notice the moment Trump's typically arrogant expression shifted to that of a deer in headlights? This wasn't just another Democrat calling him names. This was different. Most politicians tiptoe around the issue of racism as if avoiding hot coals. They'll say Trump has problematic views on diversity or uses racially charged language, relying on political euphemisms to soften the blow. But Crockett didn't hold back. She grabbed the third rail of American politics with both hands and refused to let go. Not only did she call Trump a white supremacist, but she also tied her accusation directly to real-world violence, pointing out that white supremacists are responsible for 80% of the nation's violent crimes. This shifted the focus from a personal attack to a matter of public safety. A brilliant move. Trump's usual playbook is predictable. Whenever someone accuses him of racism, he flips the script, calling the accuser the real racist and trotting out the one black supporter who claims Trump has done more for black Americans than anyone else, except maybe Abraham Lincoln. It's like rewatching a bad movie where you already know every line. But Crockett shut down his usual escape routes. By directly labeling him a white supremacist and immediately linking it to tangible harm, she left him with no room to maneuver. It was as if she had studied every one of his deflection tactics and dismantled them before he could even use them. One of her most damaging moves was connecting Trump to the January 6 insurrectionists, comparing them to white supremacists and accusing them of physically destroying democracy. This put Trump in an impossible position. Defend the rioters and risk appearing to support insurrection or distance himself from his most loyal supporters. It was a political checkmate. Crockett didn't just attack Trump, she systematically dismantled his defenses, leaving him with no good options. Her approach wasn't just a takedown, it was a masterclass in strategic political combat.
About the DOJ being weaponized by the White House. I am concerned about the FBI. Rights attorney by trade. I know about the Department of Justice and what they're supposed to be doing. With the political narrative, you will be suspended without pay, have your security clearance revoked. I am also very concerned by a rogue DOJ, or one that is not beholden to the American people.
Crockett's use of visual language, paired with precise wording, made her message impossible to ignore. You don't need a degree in political science to grasp what it means to physically destroy our democracy. That line paints a vivid mental image, one that lingers long after the conversation ends. It's the kind of language that hits you in the gut, bypassing the logical brain and striking at something deeper. This wasn't about scoring political points or playing the usual game of gotcha. What set this confrontation apart was its foundation in observable facts, forcing listeners to confront the real-world consequences of Trump's rhetoric. Crockett approached it like a prosecutor presenting evidence to a jury. Asterisk, they are tearing us down, right here, from within. Asterisk, Trump's usual responses to accusations, outrage, deflection, and name-calling were completely neutralized by Crockett's strategy. She left him with no good options. If he ignored her, he appeared to tacitly accept the label. If he countered or denied being a white supremacist, he came off as defensive and evasive. There was no winning move for him. Crockett's approach wasn't just about calling him out, it was about framing the conversation in a way that made his usual tactics useless. By staying factual, composed, and unshakable, she turned his own playbook against him, leaving him with nowhere to go. It was a masterstroke of political strategy.
They will retaliate. If you don't agree with their political agenda, you get suspended. These are the words of congressional Republicans. This is what they...
The most brilliant aspect of Crockett's approach was how she reframed white supremacy not as a matter of personal belief, but as a pattern of behavior with measurable, real-world consequences. She didn't say, asterisk, I believe you're racist. Asterisk, instead, she essentially said, asterisk, this is the harm your actions are causing, and they align with white supremacy. Asterisk, the first approach is subjective and easy to dismiss. The second demands a meaningful response. While most politicians fumble when accusing Trump of dishonesty, Crockett delivered a masterclass in exposing lies, leaving him no room to wiggle out. If calling out racism was Crockett's opening act, her dismantling of Trump's alternative facts was the main event. She didn't vaguely accuse him of being dishonest. She went straight for the jugular. Politicians often get bogged down in the back and forth of he said, she said, which plays right into Trump's evasive tactics. But Crockett didn't fall into that trap. Drawing from the prosecutor's playbook, she presented her case with surgical precision. When she said, asterisk, as it relates to him being a liar, that's just the way it is. Asterisk, she wasn't sharing an opinion, she was stating an undeniable reality. It was a cold, hard fact, delivered with the finality of a judge's gavel. Game, set, match. Crockett's strategy wasn't just about calling out Trump, it was about reframing the conversation in a way that made his usual deflections useless. By grounding her accusations in facts and measurable outcomes, she forced him into a corner with no escape. It was a masterstroke of political and rhetorical skill, leaving no doubt about the truth of her claims.
They will retaliate. If you don't agree with their political agenda, you get suspended. These are the words of congressional Republicans. This is what they believe embodies
Crockett's ability to connect Trump's falsehoods to the tangible suffering of everyday Americans was nothing short of brilliant. She didn't just critique his rhetoric in the abstract, she painted a vivid picture of its real-world consequences. We are continuing to peddle conspiracy theories, and as a result, people are dying and farmers are losing their farms, she declared. This wasn't about political theory. It was about real people losing their livelihoods. While Trump plays political games, actual lives are being destroyed. Take, for example, Trump's immigration rhetoric. His supporters often dismiss it as mere policy differences, but Crockett dismantled that argument by highlighting the practical fallout. She pointed out how fear-mongering leads to empty fields and rotting crops because farm workers are too scared to show up. Suddenly, Trump's lies aren't just irritating, they are economically devastating. Crockett transformed statistics into stories, making the human cost of Trump's disinformation impossible to ignore. When it came to Trump's favorite fairy tale about rigged elections, Crockett didn't just disagree. She delivered a verbal smackdown worthy of a WWE highlight reel. Her language was refreshingly direct, cutting through the usual political doublespeak. The courts have smacked down these unfounded accusations harder than a WWE wrestler, she said, leaving Trump looking like he'd just swallowed a lemon. But Crockett didn't stop there. The most astute part of her strategy was extending her critique beyond Trump himself. By calling out Elon Musk and social media companies for amplifying Trump's lies, she targeted the entire ecosystem that sustains his disinformation. It wasn't just about swatting at mosquitoes, she was draining the swamp where they breed. And no, I'm not talking about that swamp Trump famously promised to drain but never did. Throughout her takedown, Crockett maintained a laser focus on facts, hard, indisputable, and embarrassing facts. She didn't get lost in hypotheticals or abstract arguments. Instead, she wove together seemingly disparate issues, Ukraine, immigration, January 6, into a cohesive pattern of deception. These weren't isolated incidents, they were threads in Trump's tapestry of lies, each one reinforcing the others. Her strategy created a stark contrast between Trump's conspiracy-laden fantasy world and her reality-based critique. It was like watching someone bring a dictionary to a fight with someone who invents words. One of her most powerful moves was drawing historical connections, reminding everyone that America is a nation of immigrants and exposing the hypocrisy of Trump's policies. Her goal wasn't just to expose Trump's lies, but to show how they undermine the very principles America stands for. She revealed that Trump's victim card is so worn out, it's practically held together with Scotch tape, much like his ties. But Crockett didn't just mock his victim narrative, she dismantled it. Psychologists call it DARVO, deny, attack, reversed victim and offender. Trump portrays himself as America's greatest victim while actively persecuting others. Crockett cut through this manipulation by labeling him the divider-in-chief, a clever twist on his former title that perfectly captures his true legacy. By shifting the focus to the real victims of Trump's rhetoric and policies, ordinary Americans losing their rights, Crockett flipped the script. It's not the billionaire with the gold toilet who's suffering. It's the working-class families seeing their livelihoods destroyed. Trump's Victim Act is the cornerstone of his political strategy, allowing his supporters to feel aggrieved while supporting someone who harms others. Crockett shattered this psychological barrier by highlighting the real-world impact of his actions. When Trump cries, witch hunt, he's trying to cast himself as a modern-day Salem victim. But Crockett turned the tables, showing that Trump is the one conducting witch hunts against immigrants, political rivals, election workers, and anyone who doesn't bow to him. She essentially stopped him from shouting about witches while he was the one waving a broom and a pointed hat. Crockett's brilliance lay in not just exposing Trump's hypocrisy, but also showing Democrats how to effectively counter it. When Trump claims persecution, don't get defensive. Instead, focus the conversation on the people truly being harmed by his words and actions. It's like judo, using your opponent's momentum against them. Most politicians falter by trying to argue that Trump isn't a victim, Crockett took a different approach. She acknowledged his claims but immediately redirected attention to his actions. Asterisk, so what? Look at what you're doing to others, asterisk, she essentially said.